Hello, everybody. This is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. We do female empowerment, whereby I discuss with women what are the triggers that enable them to start their empowerment journey. What are the things that trigger them to decide that they've had enough of being docile, or they had enough of not stepping out. So it triggered them to start empowering themselves and start owning their space. So that's what we do on a Wednesday, where women come and share their journey with us as to what were the triggers and what are the issues and what are the challenges and what are the barriers they face as they come along on this empowerment journey. And as you know, people, as women, there's so many things we have to do. And there's so many things that make us become disempowered that we always have to remind ourselves of where we're going and where we come from and how much we need to empower our own self, to stand in our power and own it. Anyway, guys, I've got another fantastic woman with us who is going to share her journey. She's going to introduce herself, tell us where she comes from, and then share her journey with us. Thank you, Tahira, for coming on. I hope I spell your name right. Is it Tahira, right?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Thank you for coming on to share your journey with us. I'm really grateful and appreciative of that. So if you introduce yourself, tell us what part of the world you come from, and then you could tell us what were the triggers or what are the triggers, because empowerment is an ongoing thing. So what are the triggers, or what were the triggers to start you off on this empowerment journey?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm Tahira. I'm from Amsterdam. That's where I've lived for half of my life. And um, I currently work for a publishing house and I teach at a museum. I was born and raised in the Amazon. I lived there half of my life. And when I was a teenager, I moved to Europe, to Amsterdam with my parents. I speak Dutch fluently and English. Yeah, that's a little bit of my background. What started my empowerment journey is actually something that a lot of Black women deal with around the world, is growing up maybe with like lack of support or lack of community or lack of safety. I was also one of those Black girls growing up. I always went to school. I never really, I worked, I went to school. I never really partied or anything. But because, yeah, lack of support from my family and safety from my family, I felt like I needed to find ways to empower myself to make sure that I could create a life for myself in which I could be happy and in which I could thrive. So it was incredibly important for me to educate myself, to not just educate myself in terms of academics, but to also educate myself in terms of mental and emotional intelligence, to make sure that I was able to translate my feelings to other people, that I was able to communicate feelings and emotions, and to find all the different ways in which I could get to know myself and therefore I could know other people. So that's definitely one of the reasons why my empowerment journey started. And I felt like the more empowered I would feel, the more I would be able to treat others with kindness and respect, the more that I would be able to thrive at work, and the more successful my relationships would be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Did you find when you started this empowerment journey, people close to you were very objecting or very questioning of, how you began to take a stand?
Yes, for sure. The majority of people in my life, especially from my family, I come from a family with a lot of women. Um, Even though I have second and third cousins because I'm the only granddaughter of my immediate grandmother, but she has 9 sisters and they all have girls. So it's a lot of women. My mom was an only child and then an only daughter, but everyone around me, especially my family and some of my friends, felt like I was very arrogant, wanting to feel empowered, wanting to be well spoken, wanting to be well cultured, um, embarking on an emotional and mental health journey. They felt intimidated and unable to have certain type of conversations with me, and they felt that I was very arrogant for wanting those things. They felt envious of that for some reason, and I wanted to do it with them. So in the beginning I was having those conversations with them, and I was trying to really reach out to them and feel um connected to them in that way, but that didn't work out, unfortunately.
Thank you. Do you realize one of the things is, I think when women start on a different journey from what their close relative of a peer is on, right? It's like a threat because of fear of the unknown, because they're not too sure, where you're going to be going with that. Something I say to students all the time, especially when I was teaching in the university or at college, I said, the group of friends you now have, as you become educated and empowered, the friends you once had before, you will start dropping them because the level of conversation you'll start having, they will not be able to connect with that
Yeah.
because they'll be on a different level from you. And I remember anytime I said that to students, they'll say, Miss, what do you mean? Oh, Debbie, what do you mean? I said, this is a normal thing. When you actually have people you grew up with and you decide to go on a different journey, either on an enlightenment journey or an empowerment journey, people begin to feel threatened because they're saying that they don't understand the person you're now becoming, because you no longer have those kind of idle, empty conversations that you once used to have with them. So your conversation is very full on, is critical, is you don't sit into idle gossip. And
Yeah.
this is something I say to students all the time, even my current students right now. I say, okay, you guys are all friends here, etc. The minute you guys leave school, some of the friends are going to drop off because you're going to find that you don't have anything in common anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And is that some of the things that you found with your cousins and your
De-
relatives?
Definitely with my cousins and even some of my friends. And I found through the years that they were very connected to the old me, especially the friends that I've lost. And they were invested and connected. They were invested in a friendship with someone who was maybe not as articulate and maybe didn't really notice things. And as the more I started communicating, the more I started valuing better relationships and demanding better treatment from my family and my friends, it was really hard for them because I wasn't the same person anymore. And so they had to get to know me all over again, and they found the new me threatening, but I was also the new me also had her own insecurities. And I found that um when they saw me changing my ways, my desires, the way I spoke, the things I needed, they they were looking for insecurities because they could feel connected to those parts of me. And the more I was trying to change those things, the harder they found it to be around me. They thrived. Our relationship thrived when I was insecure. And now it wasn't able to thrive if they weren't willing to grow with me. They weren't willing to have healthier relationships with me. So it's incredibly painful because you're going through a transformation and it's a good thing for you. And you'll find out that people were invested in parts of you that weren't very good for you, you know, parts of your personality, and maybe you were struggling to communicate your feelings, or maybe you were a bit naive or incapable of providing structure or safety for yourself. and they found it amusing to see someone else struggle. And as I was breaking up with that part of me and transforming into a new person who was capable of having certain conversations, who was capable of expressing herself, they felt threatened but disappointed as well, because the person that they had known for such a long time, that they had that relationship with, was now gone. So they had to go through their own process. Whereas I've learned, the more empowered I feel, the more I celebrate and embrace change within my friends. I enjoy seeing them going from like a single woman to a loving relationship in which they thrive, and then becoming a mom, like I really just enjoy.
I'm not hearing you anymore.
Sorry, I enjoy seeing them transform. And so the more empowered I feel, the more I see connections in which the people around me also enjoy seeing me transform.
Oh my goodness, what you said was so powerful. Thank you for that. One of the things, right? Do you find that as you began to feel empowered, right? The insecurity, the insecure aspect of you, which you were trying to shed away, that people were still looking at that and trying to point out the
Yeah.
negative and trying to celebrate the negative and say, oh, who should these things is? Did you
Yes.
find that an aspect?
Yes. It happened quite a lot. Um, when I was really young, especially when I was on my own, I didn't really have a lot of money, which is, I didn't have a lot of family support. And as I grew and I got a job and I started working and saving up, and I found a better apartment, and I started taking ballet classes and piano classes, and my friends who knew me when I was really poor, they would say like, "Oh, but you can't afford piano. Like, why are you taking piano?" Or like they would say stuff like that. And I would say, "Actually, yes, 2 years ago I was really broke and I couldn't, but now I have a better job and I've worked and I've saved and I found classes that are affordable. And so yes, I am going to take piano and I am getting a keyboard and I'm going to be practicing and I'm going to be learning this at 21." And so, it was hard for them to see that I had changed. It was hard for them to see that I was not the same person. And that's just little things too. Like when I would find a relationship, um, that with someone who was popular according to the people around me, they would question it, or they would, try to speak insecurities into me, or they felt like I wasn't deserving of or like not good enough. And even adults around me who were much older, they would say things, or they would say like, if I was being mistreated in a relationship, they would say things like, "Oh, but it seems, like it's not a good fit. My daughter would be a better fit for him," or something. Like they would really try and just make me feel like for some reason I wasn't deserving of the things that I wanted. And I had to break up with the part of me that allowed those type of connections in my life. And I had to break up with not just the people, but also that part of me who still held space for that. And so that was really important for me to see that it wasn't by chance, it was by choice, right? I was choosing these connections. And even if I hadn't chosen them initially, I was choosing to nurture them and I was choosing to allow them in my life. And that's the same with family. They say blood is thicker than water, but I think love is thicker than blood. You need to have people in your
Wow.
life who love you. That's more important than whether or not they're family. They have to love you, and they have to love you in a way that you feel loved. They have to love you in a way that you feel supported. They have to love you in a way that you feel seen. And if they can't love you in a way that you feel loved, then you're better off finding other people who are willing and able to learn how to love you in a way that you feel loved. That was important for me. That's what like empowerment did for me, is recognizing my own power in the way that I live my life, and being willing to let go of the scarcity mindset, thinking that these are the people that I'm left with, and saying, actually, guys, if you're unable to see me and appreciate me and love me for who I am, it's not a good fit for me. It's going to tear me down. I need to choose connections that nurture me, not connections that tear me down. And that was important. That's an important step in my journey. That was the most important step.
Wow, that is powerful. That is so very true. Because too often we have grown up with a mindset that reinforce that, blood is thicker than water. And as you rightly say, that sometimes you have blood relatives who they don't want anything positive for you. And all they get you into a situation is very toxic. Whereas stepping away from that, you are able to breathe and you begin to foster relationship that enable you to thrive.
Yeah.
Enabling you to see who you really are and to celebrate who you really are. That is so powerful. And I think this is something we do need to remember, that, okay, blood is fine, but sometimes blood relatives could be also very toxic and damaging. So why should you carry that load on the basis of their blood? What's the point of all of that?
Yeah. It kills your spirit. It destroys your spirit. Like, I've learned as I grew, like, it's not worth it. It kills you. It really kills you. Like, being surrounded by people who don't want the best for you, who can't compliment you, who don't lift up your heart, who don't tell you it's going to be okay. Like, I have found friends who, whether I fail or I succeed, they just love me. And when I fail at something and I feel really sad and disappointed, they say, you tried, you're going to learn. And the next time, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. You're going to be okay. Let's try it again and let us know if you need help, Whereas like 10 years ago, I had people in my life who would just say you failed because, you're inexperienced. You don't know what you're doing. You should just do this instead. You're no good. Like, it kills you. It kills you. And we're not, maybe people will say we're not entitled. No, not entitled, but deserving. I always feel like I'm not entitled to people's love, but I'm deserving of it though. I deserve it. I do deserve to feel loved, to be accepted. And if family is unable to do that for you, you are better off finding very kind non-family members who will be your chosen family. And when you are able to make those decisions for yourself, it makes all the difference in your life. It makes all the difference in your life.
It is so true though. Because there's a section which I was talking about. It's interesting because these are some of the areas I was talking to my students about. Personal life perspective, whereby it's like choosing, who you want to be in your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be your relative. You're choosing who give you the love. And you might find that you have a friend who would give you much more love than your family. And I would say to them, some people see their pets as being far more important to them than the blood relative, because the blood relative is never there for them. And when they're there, is a whole lot of criticism, is a whole lot of negativity. Whereas when you have this pet, this pet, although it may not answer back to you verbally, but the action of that pet is demonstrating to you that is love, because there are no conditions from this pet. The pet is loving you anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because this whole week, that's one of the topics I was talking to students about, personal life perspective. And personal life is you choosing who you want to be in your life. You're not saying that this person in your life through bloodline, because more and more people are beginning to realize this bloodline business doesn't always work. This bloodline business we call family could also be toxic and damaging for your
Yeah.
mental health and mental well-being. So
Yeah.
therefore, why would you keep these people in your space when they're damaging your mental health? There's
Yeah.
no point in that.
For sure. And I think that it is really hard, right? Because for me especially, the world is very self-centered, right? So a lot of people around me, um they, especially in the circles where I was at, they had good family. So you start thinking that it can only be this way. But as I grew older, I started noticing that people were choosing family as well, you know? They had a chosen family, people who are just there for them. I started reading books about people who didn't have a lot of support or who struggled within their family in order to feel some type of representation of the type of complicated relationships that I had with my family. And it's hard to, because ultimately we want to be loved by these people, right? We are biologically programmed to love our parents, to want to belong with them, to want to belong with our family. We're human. So it's very common to think that these are your people, but actually I think that if they hurt you, they're not your people. And it's so you don't have to always break up with them. You know, you don't always have to ban them out of your life, but you have to deprioritize the relationship and find other relationships that are more nourishing, and put the relationships that are not so nourishing, that are maybe harsh with family, that you might not want to break up with them. You can find ways to put them on a lower scale, you know, put them in a lower place, and then make space for people who love you, who choose to love you for who you are, who don't criticize you, who don't have conditions. You don't have to bring in money or good grades or anything to get their love. You need a few of those in your life more than you'll ever need family.
That's that's fantastic. Thank you. It's like as you were saying that, this is what came to mind in terms of one of my lessons I had with my students when we were talking about some people see pets as, much more loving and part of the family. Because you see, when the pets are loving you, it is unconditional. It's not because you're bringing in the grades, therefore the pet is going to love you. It's not because, you're doing certain things, they're going to love you. The pet is loving you anyway. Whereas your family, they're always, in a lot of cases, they're always conditioned. It's never unconditioned. It's always a condition as to why you get this love. But it's so important. And as you say, we choose our family. Our family don't have to be bloodline, because some people realize that, friends are far more important to them in terms of the connection, the love you get, than your own blood family. So, it is very true. It is very true. How do you empower yourself and the women in your space?
One of the reasons how I have started empowering myself is through education, and not education to thrive in the world, but education to thrive in my body. So I'm highly sensitive. I learned a couple of years ago that I have a highly sensitive nervous system. And so I am very gifted in processing emotions and structures as well. So one of my biggest tasks in life, and it's still the same, is to read about processing emotions and to use it to my own benefit, because this is something that I naturally thrive in. So I felt like practicing that skill and becoming better at it should be my main focus, and it's not something that the world will have to or could reward me for. It's just for me. And so I did a lot of work. I've worked with therapists every year. I find a new therapist that I can work on some things with to process issues, but also to work on getting new, like developing new skills. I read stories, mostly biographies of Black women who have gone through struggle and who have achieved a lot. So I read a lot of books every year by powerful women. Um, and I also read a lot of development books, emotional maturity, how to speak about certain feelings, how to speak about certain things, how to be discerning when you're dealing with people, how to extend grace, how to be forgiving, what can you forgive, what is your job, what is not your job, you know, what how do you take personal accountability, stuff like that has been super important to me. And so I really spent a lot of time reading about things like that, and I practice it in my relationships with other people, both in like with a partner, or but also with my friends, and just find different ways of relating to people and to relating to myself that has empowered me the most, just to be like, to have the sense of emotional literacy, which is something that I don't know if it's very common in other people's lives, but in my life and in my circle, it wasn't something that people talked about or knew. And so now for me, emotional literacy is everything, and it empowers me to know how to not only deal with my own feelings, but to know how to express myself in a way that other people can understand me and that I can understand them, you know? It feels empowering. And so I have open conversations with women. Some of my friends are mothers. They go through so many stages and hormones, and I make it a routine to check in with them every week. Sometimes before I was on this call, I was calling one of my friends. She has 3 kids. She's Dutch, and then as she is clearing off and preparing to give the kids a bath, she just has her headphones in, and we can check in with each other, and I can ask her about her feelings and her day. And I really make it a priority to check in with the women in my life, not just how their job is, because that is taken care of by their boss, but how are they doing? What are they feeling? What are they thinking about? What's frustrating to them? Where do they feel lack of support? And when I'm intentional about those things, I feel like um we maintain our community. And my friends tell me as well, they give me feedback on that. They say, yes, I feel better when someone asks me how I'm doing, and when I get to talk about my feelings as I'm clearing off the table, loading the dishwasher, preparing the bath for the kids. Like, I get to feel like I'm more than just a mom, you know? I'm more than just a wife. I'm also a friend, and it's important, like what I feel, my inner world is important to someone else. So I these are things that have empowered me, and you know, it's not empowerment in the traditional way to thrive in the world and to get a better job and stuff, but it's wealth. It's emotional wealth, and to me that's everything.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. That is so very true. So very, very true. You said that what you do every year is you develop skills,
Yeah.
right? What skill have you developed lately?
What's been my latest so this month in November, I'm working mostly on discernment and the ability to honor relationships when I let them go. That has been something, my goal for November. So I've been actively practicing that. I've had to let 2 friendships go that weren't very nourishing and also very damaging to my self-esteem. So practicing discernment, learning to let go in a proper way. So in a way that you honor the relationship, you don't have to burn the bridge. You can
Mm,
actually communicate with them, let
mhm,
them know, talk to them, and honor the relationship by providing the other person with space to ask questions. You know, don't just block them and move
mhm,
on. Like, have just honor the friendship that you've had together, the time that you've had. So those are things that are skills that in the past, especially in my 20s, I did not have, that I
mm.
really value now, and that I didn't really know how to provide and how to think about it, that I'm investing in right now.
Thank you. How how does these people feel, right? Because you say you just had to let two relationships go.
Mm-hmm.
How did these people feel when you say to them that, the friendship is not serving me right now?
So how I communicate that with them is, um I just let them know, I say, hey, I really valued the time that we got to share on our mutual journeys together. I enjoyed the the parts of the friendship that were important to me, that made my life feel so much more rich,
Mhm,
and that I love them and care about them. And then I let them know as well that because of certain hurtful conversations and lack of reciprocity, lack of self awareness, and maybe also lack of willingness to apologize when I state that they hurt my feelings. Um, I say that those things were actually really hard to deal with. And since I've dealt with them for an extended period of time, my time, the amount of time that I was willing to invest in the friendship has run out,
mhm,
and that I need to make space for more nourishing connections, and therefore I need to let go of our relationship. And so I write it down, I think about it, I really spend time, like, how, because the other person will respond when you're talking to them. They can be mad or angry or upset, but these friends weren't. They were just sad that they didn't notice before, but I had some conversations beforehand with them that did not result in good things. So one of the friends already saw it coming,
mhm,
and yeah, he really apologized, and he said that he understands and that he's sorry for the ways that he treated me. And he admitted that he had his own insecurities, that he wasn't feeling very supportive, and that he was just, yeah, in his own world. I don't burn bridges. I say, like, perhaps we will find, other moments in life where our journeys will align more. So I
mhm,
try to end relationships on that note,
mhm,
to honor what you had, to allow the other person space, but also not to hurt them,
mhm.
because you don't really have to hurt them. These are really hard things to practice. I wasn't very skilled in this 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It wasn't something, but the more I read, the more I learn about how I want to be treated and how I want to treat others.
Yep. It is so very true because it is so important that we treat people with respect, and as far as is possible, we honor them in terms of to empower them, to enable them to honor themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, it is so important because some people are coming from a space where they don't know how to love themselves,
Yeah.
and they don't know how to honor themselves, and they don't know in terms of how to treat themselves. And as a result of that, other people treat them the way they treat themselves, which sometimes could be quite negative.
Yes, for sure. And I don't want to, I think there is nothing more painful than when the people that you love do not treat you with kindness and love. So it's very important to treat people with kindness and love,
Yeah.
and to not perpetuate, like a guy that I used to hang out with, we used to date. He told me, he said, um, it's one of the most important lessons that anyone has ever taught me. He said, you have to be sensitive to people's past stories.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm,
you have to be sensitive to the
mhm,
stories, like their personal lives, their
mhm,
childhood, the relationships that they've had. You have to learn to be sensitive to that, because if you don't, you'll never be able to love them well. It's not only important to love people in the lifetime of the relationship, but you have to look past the current relationship you're trying to have with them
yeah,
and honor their past stories. And we ended up not being a match because I was unable to honor his past stories. I was unable to hold space for him in a way that he needed. And
mhm,
he was very gracious, very generous, and nice. And but he was right. It wasn't a skill that I had at the time. um I
mhm,
was unable to love him in ways that he felt loved. And
mhm,
him communicating that with me has really changed the way that I view people. And so, n- as I moved on with my life, I've always remembered his words that
mhm,
people carry past stories that we
mhm,
have to be willing to honor, and we have to
mhm,
be willing to love and accept, because if we don't, we're hurting them.
mhm, 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 mhm. And it's interesting. Thank you for that. We hurting them, and we also not saying to them that we appreciate them for who they are. We have this expectation of expecting them to change, not
Yeah,
because they want to change, but because we want them to change for us.
yeah,
And wanting someone to change for you is never long lasting, because they're
no,
not changing for themselves, they're changing to please you.
yeah, yeah. And it's not real love,
Mm,
right? It's not love if you're not going to be your authentic self.
mhm,
Real love doesn't require you to trade in your, like, to give up your authentic self. It actually invites it.
yeah,
We invite it. When we love people for who they are, we say, come as you are,
yeah,
you know and we choose to love all the different parts of them, because no one is perfect. Everyone has faults.
yeah,
Everyone has past lives. Everyone has so many different layers to them, and we're always changing. We hear something or see something, or we see a movie and
mm,
we change.
yeah,
We
yeah,
hear a song and we change, or we have a conversation with someone and it changes our
mhm,
mind and we change. So
yep,
we have to allow people to come as they are, and we have to get to know them every day over and over, and love all the different parts of them. And it's quite a commitment, and it's hard work.
mhm,
So I really try. I'm not perfect. I'm learning, and I'm lucky that I get to learn with my friends. They
mhm,
appreciate it, and we practice together.
mhm,
But
mhm,
it is incredibly hard when you haven't had these examples in your life
mhm,
to learn them as an adult,
mhm, mhm,
and to practice it as an adult, to practice love when you haven't received unconditional love from your family
yeah,
growing up, to become an adult that loves other adults unconditionally, that doesn't criticize them, that doesn't
yeah,
expect them to trade in their authentic self.
mhm, mhm,
No, it's so hard, but it's worth
mhm,
it. It's
yeah,
really worth it. On the other side of those hardships is an incredible amount of like a
mhm,
treasure. It's a treasure, and
mhm.
we're maybe not entitled, but definitely deserving.
Yeah, thank you. I like that. Not entitled, but we deserving.
Yeah.
And one of the most important factors, we need to tell people how we want them to show up for us,
Yes.
you know, and also tell them how we want them to love us. Because
Yes.
you see, too often people come to you with a lot of baggages, and then they want to love you in a way that they feel that you ought to be loved, not how you feel you ought to be loved. And it's
Yeah.
important, especially as women, we tell people what we are willing to accept unconditional,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. Yes. And that changes. I found out that in myself that when I'm learning to tell people how I want to be loved, how I want to be loved changes. So I
Mm.
have to consistently tell them. And it drives me insane sometimes because I'm like, how can this person not know how to love me? And then I realize, yes, because I change all the time. So so why do I expect them to know? Why am I unwilling to teach them over and over again? You
Yeah,
know? Why
yeah.
am I unwilling to translate the inside of myself to them?
Mhm,
I I learned slowly but surely that yeah, we have to be willing and we have to humble ourselves
mhm,
that the other person really is just learning with us and
mhm,
they might learn at a different pace, you
mhm.
know? They might need reminders. Sometimes you
Yeah.
might have to tell someone two, three, four times how you need to be loved.
Mhm,
Sometimes 10, 20 times. And that's
mhm,
okay as long as they're willing. And yeah, I didn't grow up. I This is not how I was raised. So it's hard for me to learn these things and because I know it, but to practice them is
mhm,
incredibly difficult, you
mhm,
know?
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. You said something that was good, that which is interesting, that at times we have to remind people because we're changing ourselves so many times.
Yeah.
So in terms of what we see as love today, tomorrow would be different, depending upon
Yes.
what's gone into our life and what, where we were and the journey we've taken. So
Yeah.
you're so right that we constantly have to be reminding people how we want and ought to be loved.
Yeah. Yes. And we have to be willing, right? We have to be willing to remind them. We
Mhm,
have to tell ourselves like when we see that they're not loving us properly, we have to be willing to say, okay, I'm changing.
mhm,
So now I require this.
mhm,
And I've changed my mind.
mhm,
Actually, I prefer us to talk when we're at home
mhm,
instead of
mhm.
on our walks, because
Yeah.
I want to sit across from you now and be
Mhm,
able to look you in your eyes. Or, you know, I require more time apart now because I need more time for myself. But
mhm,
I would like to schedule dates with you
mhm,
every Sunday, for example, instead of spending the whole weekend together. I need some more time on the weekend for myself now.
mhm,
Before I didn't mind spending the whole weekend together, but now I feel a little different for this season in my life.
mhm,
Like
mhm,
we have to be
mhm,
willing, like it has to be a constant state of translating ourselves to other people and being willing, always
mhm,
to be willing, never to feel like the other person should just know because how should
mhm,
they know,
mhm, mhm.
you know?
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. You said something earlier on which I'm going to pick up, that there's sometimes people need to humble themselves. And it is so true because this morning I was going to do a live on that I felt that people seems to feel that they have a right, instead of humbling themselves to the situation, they feel that they don't need to humble themselves. But it is so important. The more humble you are, the more you're going to see how gifted the universe have, what gift the universe have for you. And
Yeah.
it's this humbling of self, people seem to have a lot of challenge with that, you know.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. They have a lot of challenges because we haven't been taught this. As children, we've been taught that from the people that taught us about love, they taught us that they are the boss, they deserve our time and respect. They don't have to do anything for it. We have to do what they say. You know? We never learned as kids like, oh, actually, you're special. You deserve love. I should ask, you know? They say give your grandmother a hug, pick up your
Mhm,
toys, respect me, don't talk to me like that. That's how they've talked to us. So as adults now, this is how we treat other people. We think they should do what we want because we are the adults now. And that's what we thought that adulthood was going to be like. Like a lot of us, when we were kids, we felt like, oh, actually, I can't wait to become an adult. As soon as I'm an adult, then I can be the boss, you know? So it's hard for a lot of people because they're like, now they're adults and no one does what they want. And they feel like I have to enforce it. But
Yes.
actually, it wasn't nice that we were being treated like that by our family in the first place. So we have to learn new ways. And that might be harder to say, okay, actually, I really like for example, I used to be in a relationship with someone, his love language was me, I should bring him water. He wants me to offer him water. And for me, it was just like, you can get your own water, it doesn't matter. But he was
Exactly.
raised that way, right? His mom, when he was at home, she would always offer him water. She would always bring a cup of water to him if he was studying or, when he was in his room. And so for him, that translated to being loved. And that's when I learned, like, it's these little things that people expect. And he was willing to communicate that with me. Like, he said, you never offer me water. And I learned that that means that he feels loved. He felt loved by his mom, that she always was thinking about him being hydrated, that she always was making sure that he had water with him as he was, so little ways that we just are so unique, but we feel loved in that way. And we should be willing to say, like, hey, actually, this means a lot to me. Maybe not um in like a bossy way where we expect it, but we can ask people if they are willing to meet our needs, our very specific needs, you know very personal needs that we have. And we can
Yeah.
say, would you mind offering me water sometimes?
Mhm.
And then you can see what the other person will say. And when
Exactly.
I knew the story, of course I was offering him water now because I knew that meant a lot. But before, I was like, why should I bring you water? You know, why was this important to you? Yeah.
That's interesting though. Wow. That's interesting. That's really powerful, eh? In terms of, what someone's love language is, you allow them to practice their love language.
Yeah.
Because by you not allowing them, you're actually suffocating them.
Yes.
You're forcing them to be something else. It's interesting because I know someone and she was just saying to me her husband love language is to be of service. And he would constantly, want to be of service to her. And for her, initially she wasn't connecting with that very well. But then when she realized, well, hold on, when I don't allow him to do that, it affects him
Yeah.
because that's his love language to be of service. And it meant that he wants to be of service to her. So there is nothing wrong with that. It's so fascinating when you start, you know, understanding the love language and
Yeah.
allowing it within a friendship or a relationship. It does make the connection very fluid.
It does.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
really it's powerful. Thank you so much for that. And one of the questions is, what can we do to empower young women? Because I know you teachers and I know you teach young people sometimes. So what can you do to empower these young people?
I think we can definitely start by honoring their authentic self, having an showing an interest in who they are, aside from their academic performance, not just focusing on their performance, but focusing on who they are what they want, their unique desires, being willing to listen, inviting them to explore their own feelings and their own interest, even if it's different from what we would think that they should be doing. I think that's something that will definitely empower them to feel like we honor them as they are, and they will naturally feel like who they are can take up more space. And as they're taking up more space, they will feel empowered because we can make sure that when they show up as their authentic self, that we're holding space for that authentic self, that we're honoring that authentic self, that we say come as they are, but when they come, we also have to be accepting of who that is, even if that doesn't match the idea of what we were hoping to see or wanting to see. I think that definitely is something that we should allow them. We should allow them more time to self-reflect, to practice emotional skills that are so essential for their survival and for them to build healthy relationships, because schools will already expect them to academically perform. We don't have to do that on top of that, right? Society is already putting enough pressure on them. We don't have to put pressure on them. But what they do need is love, care, space, invitations to connect and to honor their authenticity, you know? So
that is so true, because too often as young women, you don't see that happening because everybody's telling them what they ought to be and ought to become. Instead of saying, okay, this is where you are, I just need to honor that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was talking to my son this afternoon, one of my children, my last son this evening, and he's into fashion. And one of the things he's actually finding very challenging is the teachers are not honoring him where he's at.
Yeah.
They want him to be this way. And I'm saying to him, okay, I have to speak to the teacher tomorrow because she's been trying to call me. And I said, one of the things I'm going to say to her is, you know, there's some children we need to allow them to be and honor them where they are and celebrate them for where they are, and just trust that they will deliver what we want them to do. Not every child needs a hand holding. Some children are very independent that just want you to honor them where they are.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things he's saying to me earlier on. Oh, he's so frustrated because they're not trusting him. And they keep on saying, well, you know, we need it to be done like this.
Yeah.
And
such a pity.
It is. And I'm saying to him, I say, you know, one of the things is, I was talking to my student today and telling them that I am not interested in robots. I want critical thinkers. I said, because right now you all are not using your critical thinking skills. You guys are being programmed because of how society wants you to be programmed. I want you to be critical thinkers. I want you to step outside of the box.
Yeah.
So that's something I was saying to them. And I'm listening to my son saying that, you know, he's not allowed to be a critical thinker. You know, the fact that he's into fashion and he's doing fashion designing, that the teachers on the course, they're not allowing him to be authentic. And that's a real challenge for him. And I could see that because I said to him, not every teacher feel comfortable enough to allow, you know.
No, of course. It's also their own programming. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm listening to him and I'm saying to him, I understand where you are. I said, because that was my conversation with my student today, wanting them to be critical thinkers. And there you are, wanting to be a critical thinker, but the teachers are not allowing you to.
Yeah.
And it's so, you know, because when we do that, we suffocate the authenticness of the individual.
For sure. Yes, I full-heartedly agree.
Yeah. It's, and you know, in terms of empower, it doesn't empower, it disempowers that individual.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. it damages their self-esteem,
Yeah,
and it doesn't allow them to show up as their authentic self, which is
yeah.
such a pity because yeah, they need it.
Exactly. And this is something I say all the time. In primary school, we allow the child to be authentic. We allow the child to be critical thinkers. We allow the child to be themselves, and we celebrate the child being themselves at primary school. At secondary school, all that disappear. At secondary school, we drum into them the need to be sameness.
Yes.
They need to be robots. And it's quite sad because when you see some children are crying out to be unique self and to be empowered, and yet still they're being dumbed down, it's quite sad because it removes the empowerment of that individual.
Yes, of course. It really does. It truly does.
You know.
I
Yeah.
hope in the future they will be able to empower the youth more and to allow them to show up as their authentic self and to definitely be more critical thinkers. I've really enjoyed the questions you've asked me today, and it was really special to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Finally, what three suggestions can you give to women to empower themselves?
Um, Spend time getting to know who you are, um, completely independent from the world. What you like, what food do you like, what desserts do you like, which colors bring you joy, which fabrics do you like, what do you like, and not necessarily what the world wants you to be. That's the first. So the first is definitely spend time getting to know yourself and who you are. The second one I would have for them is meet new people. Be incredibly curious about other people. Learn to venture out, to go on vacation by yourself, enter new groups, talk to strangers, meet people. They will bring you the best lessons, the best experiences of your life. And the best lessons you'll ever learn are from people you're never going to see again. Like really kind strangers with amazing stories. So get to know new people, step out of your circle, open up to others. And then the third one is honor your own time. We only have a limited amount of time. It seems like we have forever, but we really don't. Most of us will have maybe 70 summers, 70 winters, 70 birthdays. So honor your own time. What feels good for you in the seasons of your life? Don't work on the world's clock. Work on your own clock. Honor your own time. And as you learn to honor your time, you'll notice that you'll meet people who honor your time as well. Because your time is very precious. It's important for you to honor it. Those are my three.
Oh, wow, fantastic. Those are three real powerful suggestions in order to encourage, especially women, to be empowered. The one which really sticks out to me is honor your time. Yeah, because we, especially as women, we are giving everybody of our time,
Yeah.
and we forget ourselves.
We
Thank you so very much for that. It's been a fantastic conversation. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience? Is there anything else you want to say?
Um, Thank you so much for having me. This was such an amazing conversation to have with you, and I love seeing what you're doing. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I love that there's a whole community of women who are learning to be more empowered, who are having these important conversations with each other. It was such a great blessing to, yeah, to get to be here with you, talk about things that matter, that definitely matter to me and also matter to you. um yeah, I appreciate the time that I got, and yeah, I hope to see more amazing interviews in the future.
You certainly will. Thank you very, very much for accepting the offer to come on to share your journey with us. It was really, really powerful. And I really do appreciate the conversation we had this evening. And I know a lot of women will actually get a lot out of it, especially some of the things you've said in relationship to blood relative and choosing your family. Those are so, so powerful, because too often people are afraid of choosing their family.
Yeah.
They think that because we've been conditioned to feel and think that our family, because they're blood, it meant that they are the family. But for a lot of people, it's not. For a lot of people, it's so toxic, it's damaging. They don't need to be there because they've been conditioned to feel that this is your family, you have to be there. No, you don't.
No. I say, blood is thicker than water, but love is thicker than blood.
I think that is so powerful. I wrote it on my pad here, and I think that is so powerful. Love is definitely thicker than blood.
Yeah.
It's so, so powerful. And the minute we start realizing that, we're going to start having a different concept, a different conversation, and we'll have less toxic in relationship, and we're going to feel that we don't need to be in toxic family relationship in the name of family.
Definitely.
And, thank you so very much for that reminder and reinforcing in people's head that they don't have to. You could choose your family.
You can. You most definitely can. And it's, maybe we're not entitled to people's love, but we're deserving. So find people who want to give it to you, who want to give you love and support. You deserve it. You deserve a community that honors you, that sees you, that understands you, and chooses to love you, for sure. Thank you so much for having me today. It was such a delight.
Thank you so very much. And thank you so very much, my Facebook audience. It was wonderful. Take care. Good night, good morning, good evening, where you are. Take care of yourself, and remember to love yourself. And remember, you don't have to remain in a toxic family in the name of this is your family. You could choose your family and be enlightened and empowered. Take care. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.